You're listening to the Industry Alchemist podcast. The definition of alchemy is a seemingly magical process of transformation or creation. This podcast exists to hear the stories of entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders doing just that in their industry. We hear about the journey of the brave souls carving a new path, moving their industry and our lives forward in a seemingly magical way. I'm your host, Matt Brower, co-founder and managing broker of Column Commercial Partners, helping companies save money on their real estate. Hey guys, welcome back to the Industry Alchemist podcast. I'm your host, Matt Brower. This episode's guest is someone I had the pleasure of crossing paths with just 2 days ago in an acro yoga class in beautiful Playa Venao, Panama. After then sharing a meal together and learning what an incredible story she has and how she's changing lives with what she's creating in the technology space, I had to get this story on this podcast. Daniela Luzzi Tudor is changing the world by creating technologies, services, and experiences that connect humans. Her company, We Connect Health, has a core mission of using the vast potential of technology to connect people and communities for physical, mental, and spiritual health. I very much look forward to hearing all about that, so let's dive right in. Thank you for being on the show, Daniela.
Thank you so much for having me. It's beautiful out here in Panama.
It is, yeah. We are sitting on the balcony of El Sitio Hotel, looking out at the ocean right now. You guys got the best hotel room in this entire property, I think. So appreciate you having me over.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. I'm super excited to talk with you today.
Yeah. So let's start by talking about, telling us a little bit about your background and in terms of your personal journey, which then led to We Connect Health. If you want to get into that, share as much as you would like.
That sounds great. Yeah, so I was born in Romania, and my parents knew that when the revolution happened when I was 5, that things weren't essentially going to get instantly better. My dad's dream was always to come to America, so through a long series of events, I spent most of my childhood moving from Romania to Germany to Portugal, and then landed in the United States. Being, Eastern European culture, we weren't always inclined to thinking about things like therapy or wellness. That's just not something that is implicit in the culture that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And that caused conditions along with the life of constantly moving, constantly changing friendships and environments and having to learn new languages. Those were wonderful experiences, but they also came with a lot of painful experiences as well. And I hadn't quite found a way to process those. And so through my early teens and 20s, I became very addicted to not just substances, but also overworking, over-exercising, kind of the gamut, because I didn't really have a place to process these emotions, and that was my only way of coping with life.
So anything to distract yourself from just being with you.
Yes.
Is that a good way to describe that?
That's a great way to describe it. What I actually, and physically what I felt is I had this huge burning circle or hole in my chest, which these days it's much smaller and it only flares up once in a while as I continue my journey. But through most of my teens and my 20s, it was always ever present. So anything I could do to numb or move away from that is what I reached out for. And I went through life, and again, both overworking and both being addicted to substances, those two things were actually in contrast, working with each other for quite some time. But soon after, about the last 3 years of my addictions, it really started cascading in a really big way. And I couldn't actually balance everything anymore. And my business partner for my last business before We Connect, she sat me down, and she's one of my best friends now. She sat me down in a really loving, unconditionally loving way, and communicated with me in a way that I could actually hear her that I was having a problem with substances. And that kind of set me in the first phase of pursuing my own recovery and healing journey. It allowed me to recognize that something was wrong, but still for another year or two, I didn't know quite how to address it. And so things got much worse before they got better. And I ended up getting a DUI when I moved back to Seattle from Los Angeles to kind of get a break from everything, so to speak. I thought I just needed an environment change. Again, it was always about the external before. Like, I thought changing my environment would fix things. And I ended up getting a DUI where I, blew a .29 after being at the police station for 3 hours. And shortly after that, I got arrested for actually missing the arraignment for the DUI.
Oh,
and
wow.
that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, because when I spent those few nights in jail, I came to a reckoning of, like, I recognize that I can't live this way anymore, but I also don't know how to live without substances and without sort of grasping for external things to fix whatever I was feeling inside. And when I got out, I chose to opt to go into an inpatient treatment. And at the time, I didn't think that a 28-day rehab program was going to work. But my intention was, I'm going to go through this program, demonstrate to my parents that I tried everything that I could. And then my plan was actually to take my own life. But within 2 days of landing in treatment, I actually had a complete turnaround, and I had sort of my first awakening experience.
A couple things. First of all, kudos to your business partner for having the strength to, like, really fucking love and care for
Yes.
you and say something.
Yeah.
That's very hard to do,
Yes,
as we all
agreed.
know, and so important. And secondly, 2 days in, do you know what it was that, like, caused the shift?
Yeah, so to kind of lay the lay of the land, I landed in this treatment program. It was not a fancy one, and I kind of wanted it that way. I realized some intuitive thing inside me was like, hey, you kind of need to strip away everything in order to really address what's going on or even have a fighting chance, even though consciously on the surface I didn't think this program was going to work. So I'm sitting there, and you can't have a phone. You don't have contact with the outside world. You have some programming, but mostly you're just like sitting with yourself and the other people going through the same thing that you are. So first was just recognizing, like, wow, there's people from all walks of life going through the same thing that I am. Which prior to this experience, I had the same stigma as many people do, that people that experience addiction are of a certain stereotype. But in that treatment center, I had everything from people experiencing homelessness to wealthy business people to former athletes to pregnant mothers. I mean, it was just like the whole gamut. So it was the recognition that I am not going through this alone.
Yeah.
Then I started reading a book by Dr. Milam that described the actual health condition of addiction. So again, this is a dis-ease of my brain. There's something in my brain that functions differently when ingesting substances. So it's physiological, and it's also behavioral, and it's also psychological. So this isn't something that I'm like choosing to do, which was a huge part of my denial to get help, because I had a lot of guilt and shame that this is something that I was just like a failure at. And so those two things happened in the first 24 hours. And then the next evening, I started reading the 12-step book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is just one of the many modalities I use. There's really useful things in that 12-step program that I get out of it, which I can talk about a little bit later. But essentially, I read the first few pages, which describes the author's experience with addiction, which this guy, Bill W., was a stockbroker in the 1930s, in America, couldn't have a more different on paper life experience than me. But the way that he described how he felt from being young all the way through recovery were the same feelings, thoughts, kind of internal world experience that I had experienced. And whatever that did, maybe it was because finally I realized I wasn't alone again, or helped me realize, like, oh my God, there is a solution here. There's so many people that have gone through this, and clearly they've found another way of life and became free of what they were struggling with. But that night I felt something really heavy leave my body, and I just felt really light the next day. And then I surrendered completely and just became open to doing whatever I was told and suggested in terms of the therapists in the program, the counselors, the support, community support out of the 12-step program. I basically was like, you know what, I can always go back to what I was doing before.
Right, yeah, may as well try this.
But might as well try this for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
And, worst case scenario, I can go ahead with my previous plan.
Wow. I love how you recognized that this happens to everyone. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are in the world.
Yeah.
It kind of showed you this doesn't need to be my story.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Wow. So you spent those 28 days, and that literally changed who you are.
I wouldn't say it
amazing.
changed who I am. I think it brought who I really am to the surface.
Okay, that's a
is the
great way
that
to
I would
put
say it.
that. Yeah.
I think that, yeah, it just allowed me to gain tools to start uncovering and rediscovering the parts of me that were just, yeah, basically numbed or shunned away, or I didn't let them express themselves through this life experience of having, so many changes growing up.
Yeah. And thank you for your vulnerability in sharing that. Because I can count so many friends of mine, business associates, that this happens to.
Yeah.
And it's just not talked about. And it's like there's shame tied to it, and there doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
Me too.
And hopefully as many people as possible listen, so that like we just lift this stigma. It's
Yes.
just bullshit.
Yes, that's right.
So okay, so I want to transition to your company, and how this was born. This baby of yours called We Connect Health was born. How old is the company?
Yeah, so the journey really started with the idea coming up during that 28-day program.
Wow.
So it's about 9 years old in totality. So we're just on the older side of being a teenager, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've really matured in the last couple of years, especially through the pandemic and post-pandemic. So.
Okay. Very cool. I mean, critical time too.
Yep, that's right.
So high level, what does the company do? What have you created?
Yeah, so during that 28-day program, I learned that, one, when I was going to leave that 28-day program, I was no longer going to be surrounded by necessarily people all the time that understood what I was going through. And I thought this is a chronic condition that is there for the rest of your life. The way that I describe being in recovery from addiction is that it is like diabetes, and our insulin is community support. And wellness practices that need to be practiced on a weekly or daily basis. Just like with diabetics, they need to take their insulin.
Yeah.
And so I thought that the system, the way it is, very archaic, is very strange that you're expected for a lifelong chronic condition to go to a 28-day program, and at the end, not only am I not going to be surrounded by people that community support that I need, but I also receive a piece of paper that's my treatment program that says do all of these things every week for the rest of your life. And I thought, oh my gosh, that seems really broken, and no wonder that the relapse rate is 80% within the first 60 days of attempting recovery.
Right. Wow.
So what we created is a program where in a very fun, easy-to-use mobile application, you can find 3 core things. One, you can schedule out all of your wellness activities, whatever that looks like for you, self-care, therapy, exercise, 12-step programs, plant medicine, whatever that looks like for you. And when you check into those activities by URL or GPS or self-reporting, you earn incentives. So you earn actual digital gift cards that you can use in the real world to purchase things that are going to be useful for your life. You can also connect with one of our certified peer coaches one-on-one, and they can be as involved in your life and in all areas of your life and support you as much as you need or as little as you want. And then in addition to that, almost every couple hours during the day and into the late evening, you can access group meetings led by these peer coaches. So that can be on topic like grief, LGBTQIA+, women's, mothers, men's, family and loved ones of people in recovery. We have a huge variety. So that's essentially the program for the end member or the individual using it. And the way they can access the app is directly as an individual in the App Store, or they can get it through their employer or their health plan if we have a contract in place with those organizations.
So when you were building this, did you essentially have to build 3 separate communities? One being the users, 2 being the clinical partners, and 3 being the companies that and the healthcare providers that are basically offering the the connectedness, like the benefits.
Yeah, so the way that we think about it is that the member is actually the most important.
Yeah.
Because if they engage and when they engage and they see this changing their life and we get the results and data on that, then the B2B customers follow, so the companies and the health insurance plans. But yes, we essentially have two stakeholders. The clinical partners is usually what is in that geography. They're used as an anchor, but we don't necessarily have to build that, right? But yes, the individual and the member to us are the most important, and then of course we have a team that does all of the work in terms of sales and account management with the health plans and the individual companies that we partner with. The peer coaches are the ones that interact with the members.
Okay. Wow. Sounds like a massive task.
It's B2B2C, which
Yeah.
is definitely its own category.
Yeah.
For
Wow.
sure.
And you're 9 years old now, and where's your company based, by the way?
So we were headquartered in Seattle pre-pandemic. A huge bulk of our colleagues are still there. However, we are now all remote, and a huge majority of our employees are scattered all over the country. Even the ones in Seattle, certain ones have bought homes, outside of Seattle after the pandemic, realized they want to be closer to nature, and
Yeah.
we've adapted to that, and I personally love it too. So
Yeah. I mean, that's one silver lining out of COVID. I guess it showed us all that we can work remote, and it actually works.
yeah,
The world continues to move forward.
yes, that's right.
Big part of how I got into developing properties down here in Panama. So
Yeah.
oh, that's great. Were there any like big, oh shit, I didn't see this coming, like big issues that came up as you were building this that were really lessons for you coming up as an entrepreneur?
I mean, so many.
Yeah.
So currently I also teach those lessons and share my experiences with other entrepreneurs and creatives as well. And I coach and mentor people. So I would say the biggest benefit of that is now I can help other people avoid or minimize lessons learned. But I would say I don't think I learned anything that is, revolutionary outside of what most entrepreneurs will tell you. But I think, things like budgeting for the unexpected, much bigger than you think. So no matter how big of a delta you're putting into your fundraise or your budget for unexpected things in the first few years as a startup, I can't emphasize enough of like whatever that is, like tack on another buffer.
Yeah.
Because especially with healthcare industry, it is such a complicated system in the United States. And as a small startup company, you fundamentally function differently than the organizations you're partnering with. And there is no shortage of changes that happen for them or layers of steps that you need to take in order to go to market that you, even if other people are telling you about it, you're still probably not budgeting the appropriate time and pivots and resources.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the biggest lesson. And then, and then the other big thing is, until it is very clear that something is going to move forward, don't over prepare for it too much, actually. I
Just
would
dive
say.
in.
Just dive in and be really, really careful how you allocate your resources and your spend, especially when it comes to having a business in healthcare, because things change all the time and there's new laws and policies and regulations that come up that you have to overcome. So I can't emphasize that enough, probably.
Especially in healthcare, I would imagine.
Yeah. On the positive side, I would say, though, that one thing we've done extremely well is building the culture at WeConnect. I mean, we are also in the service industry. We have a team of peer coaches who one of the things I'm most proud of is that team. And we have little to zero turnover because we treat them well. We have great benefits. We really encourage and make sure that they're not burning out as caregivers. And that has proven to not only have better service where individuals give feedback on those folks all the time, that's extremely positive, but it's allowed us to have a really sustainable team and business where, we actually have the opposite thing that we experience, which is people are really wanting to work at WeConnect. And
Wow.
and so I can't overemphasize the lesson of it really does matter, like your values and your culture, and it really does matter how you treat your people, and investing in that will save you money, I promise.
Yeah. What? How many employees do you have today?
So right now we are at 29.
Okay.
We went through some shifts during the pandemic, like everybody has, and now we're really starting to come out of that, and hopefully going into growth mode coming up again. So.
What are your company's core values?
Yeah, so we have the acronym TIGERS,
Okay.
but the most important ones that I find is trustworthy for the T, and then for the R, which is rapid. So being quick and
Yeah.
also really trustworthy.
Awesome.
But our acronym of our values is TIGERS, and we reward based on that quarterly. We also have people express where they've demonstrated those values seen in their colleagues on a biweekly basis at the all company.
Yeah.
So we really put those into practice in an exercise. They're not just like virtual documents and stored in a folder somewhere.
Yeah. I was involved with Entrepreneurs Organization, EO,
Oh yeah.
very large global
Yes.
organization. I was in the Colorado
part of
chapter.
the Seattle chapter.
Really? Cool.
Yes, and before I moved full time to LA.
Nice. Yeah, and I haven't been involved for a few years, but I have so many close friends friendships I developed out of that organization that I'm still, very close with. I mean, I'm so fortunate to be a part of that. But that's one thing I learned is, scaling a business. The most important thing is dialing in your core values and living them every single day.
Yep.
And it just changed my business philosophy and everything with my company.
I mean,
So,
I really attest to that. So we started our employer business line just 10 months ago or so, or we're coming up on a year-ish. And that's when we created the product to really fit selling it as a benefit directly to businesses for their employees. And I really attest the growth of that channel, not just the market conditions, but also because of the culture, because myself and my CFO and my co-founder can focus on our own things we need to focus on that only we can do, which is like deal with the board, investors, finding more larger macro reseller deals, because I just know on the ground floor everyone is practicing the values so they can make decisions on a daily basis without us having to be there.
wow,
That's
because those
most
are the
important
guidelines.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the most that I think has really allowed us to be super fast and nimble as a reduced team since the pandemic.
What a perfect articulation of why core values are so important. Wow. So I want to get into. This is not a smooth transition at all. I want to get into how you got into music. You're an artist. You're currently on the what is it, Lane 8's label?
Yes, This Never Happened is the name of the label.
Okay, so talk about that if you would.
Yeah, so always been a huge fan of electronic music, not just because I'm European, but in Seattle when I was in my teens, that culture was really fostered. There's a radio station called C89.5, which is globally known for electronic music out of Seattle High School, actually. And of course, there's nightclubs there, and there were underground raves at the time. And I always loved the music, loved the culture, even did some business related stuff, promoting, creating some music related art pieces through my teens and 20s. And I always admired like the artists and the DJs and was deeply embedded into it and studied it, but never, especially during my addiction, because my self-esteem was so low and my confidence was so low, did I think that I could basically go on that journey. I get into recovery, I start my healing journey. I also supported a friend who got into his recovery and healing journey. And while he was doing that in his first couple of early years, I said, hey, I feel like music could be another tool for me therapeutically. Would you mind giving me a DJ lesson? And he did, and I instantly fell in love with it. And then I thought, it was really helping me process stress from work. It was really helping me quiet my mind down so I could solve complex issues. And it was pairing into something that I loved my whole life in the privacy of my home. Then I just really started like using my free time for it, really loving it, really diving into it, being really dedicated to it. And I asked him, would you mind also teaching me how to produce and actually make the music so I could get some of my own ideas out.
Yeah.
And so through that journey and the combination of the pandemic as well, I started living part-time in Tulum, where my mentor and coach Reyes was living at the time, and just really started diving into it head first. And through that experience, I started sharing my mixes on SoundCloud and, had created a couple tracks, and one particular track called Warrior. I created that track in the depths of the jungle in Tulum where I was living part-time.
How cool.
And the energy there was just so incredible.
Yeah.
It feels like you're just like kind of boxed in the safest way. There's just like an energy about being there. And I submitted that track to several labels with my manager at the time. And I come across Instagram and I hear this track. And this track I heard on Instagram felt like it was in the same lane, in the same kind of universe as my track Warrior. And I look at the caption and it was like, oh, it's on this Never Happened label. And I do a quick search and I was like, wow, that's Lane 8's label. I've been a huge, huge fan of his. I mean, the first mix I put out has like 2 Lane 8 tracks on it.
Really? Yeah.
Yes, like
he's
a
an
huge
incredible
fan of him.
artist.
He is, I think, the most talented producer in the space right now. He's just incredibly genius, really.
Yeah.
And my manager at the time submitted that track over, and within 3 days he responded. He asked for the file because he wanted to include it in his quarterly mix he puts out.
Wow.
And then he was like, I'm going to sign this. And that's what really cracked open my ability to share my music on stages and start creating my first EP, which released last year. And it's just been a really amazing way for me to express myself and to express myself, and through my art give people another way that they can deal or find joy in their life or just deal with their emotion and their hardships. That's very different from putting a product out there.
Right.
So I have the same mission in mind to really help and support people, but this is a very different way of doing that. And it's just been a wonderful new thing in my life that I wasn't expecting to develop in this way.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it all matters. Like, it's all important. It's all part of the journey. Music is so therapeutic, and whether you're on a spiritual journey of any kind or not, it really heals us.
Yeah.
So wow.
It's very true. It certainly helped me and throughout my entire life. So
that's great. And we will. So you have a SoundCloud channel. You're also on Spotify. Mm-hmm. We'll put links to those things on this post when we post it. So
sounds great.
And then before I forget, when you consult with businesses,
Mm-hmm.
how would people contact you for that? Are you looking to grow that side of your business at all, or?
Yeah, so not yet. I mean, I have a wait list.
Is it really just word of mouth and?
It's been word of mouth. I don't really publicize it much.
Okay.
I guess I am now on this podcast. So I take on only 2 people at a time because I find it important to be able to give them the attention that they need, and it's really not my number one priority. Obviously, We Connect is. But yeah, if people are interested in that work, I can send them information on how I engage the prices and give them a pre-work questionnaire to see if they're a fit for me as well, and vice versa. And then I sort of share with them, when I would be available to do that. But I don't take on more than 2 people at a time for now. It is something that in a later stage in life, I would like to increase that impact, and I'm going to allocate some time of thinking how I can do that at a later time. Because I'd like nothing more than just really share those lessons and help as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So, but I've enjoyed doing it both with business owners as well as other artists, DJs, musicians, creatives, because they actually are a business as well. You, as an artist, you are your own product, and if you apply just some basic structural, strategic things, I've seen, the people I've mentored, go from not really having an organized thought around how to guide their music career to, completing an EP, getting it out to labels, getting it signed.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Thanks for doing that. So I like to wrap these episodes with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So that the listeners can get to know you more personally.
Great.
Who are there any names of individuals that have been, maybe it's somebody that has been in your life, or maybe a thought leader that has been super impactful for you in your life?
So I would say Brene Brown in terms of thought leader. I think even if, whether it's business or personal or creative endeavor, treating your own trauma and going on your healing journey is the thing that will help you along the most, hands down, because trauma can manifest in so many weird ways. Like I will see people literally get frozen on answering emails because actually the trauma that's coming up is when they were rejected as a kid or something like
Right.
that. So I do believe that like your business success hinges upon your own personal journey. So Brene Brown in that regard. Personally, my greatest, biggest mentor in life and business is one of my investors and chairman of my board. He's out of Vancouver, Canada, and he's taught me so much over the last 8 years. And then third, I would say my dad, his perseverance and everything he's gone through in his life to get us to the United States. And then also my mom for teaching me many, many other lessons. I wouldn't be here without them. So.
Wow, cool. So you're in the technology space. What is your favorite or most used technology that you use on a daily basis?
I mean, I'm very simple. My entire life, no matter, even if it's what I call fuck around time, is scheduled in my calendar.
Yeah. Is it?
Yes.
Nice. That's great.
So doing nothing is scheduled into my
I
calendar.
should start scheduling my fuck around time.
Yes. So
That's a great idea.
So for me, I keep it super simple. It is my calendar.
Cool.
My Gmail calendar.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. For me, like things do not, unless it's in my calendar, it does not exist.
Exactly.
I will not remember. I will be on to other things. It's like
Yep.
so important.
Yep.
Last question. What is your superpower?
My superpower.
Something you are great at that people may or may not know about you.
I mean, I've received feedback that it is really seeing the bigger picture and being able to break it down into strategic time-based tasks. So like general strategy. I think it's also self-awareness. I'm able to see where I'm blocking myself, and I'm able to also read other people in terms of not just even practical things, but emotions. And I think that ability to be able to describe those things as they're happening allows for a lot of progress and allows me to get over my own obstacles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got that from you with the questions you were asking me at breakfast when, with regard to our retreat center that we plan to open down here in Panama. So it's like, wow, you tapped into something really cool. So,
Thank you.
Well, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being on
Thank
the
you,
show.
and I can't wait to learn more about your endeavors, real estate, the retreat center. I'm really grateful to have met you and your partner. So.
Likewise. All right. Thank you again, and we'll wrap it here.